Are back. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Elite Duels podcast. I'm your host, Mark, aka Frushi, and today I'm joined by my brother Nick, aka Filthy Frank. Today's podcast, we will be discussing the year of 2019, Astralis versus Liquid. Today's show is sponsored by Elite Duels, bringing the fun and excitement of fantasy sports to esports. Play for free to win real cash. Draft your favorite players and watch them earn fantasy points. Use code DUELS when you deposit $5 or more and receive $5 free. Today we are looking at the CSGO battle of 2019 between two giants, Liquid and Astralis. Astralis came into 2019 on a high after the amazing performance in 2018, where it seemed no team would ever be able to match their skill combined with in game strategies and godly like preparation. Let's start. January 2019, the first big event of the year was the iBuyPower Masters in Los Angeles, California, which saw 8 teams compete for $200,000 in cash. Both Astralis and Liquid finished the group stage undefeated to advance to the semifinals and eventually meeting each other in the finals. Map 1 was extremely lopsided as Astralis won 16-4 on Inferno, Glaive leading the way with 23 kills and a 1.9 player rating. Map 2 was Dust 2 and went in the favor of Liquid, led by Stewie2K with 27 kills. The final and deciding Map 3, Liquid at this point were huge underdogs and ended up defeating Astralis 16-11 to claim their first championship of the year. NAF ended up winning the MVP of the tournament, and Liquid takes home $100,000 of that prize money, while Astralis takes home $40,000. This being the first big event of the year, was this a big shocker to you, Nick? I know we're going back 12, 11 months, but sure enough, this was probably a shocking result as Liquid was still fairly new combined team after Taco had left and they replaced him with Stewie, and Astralis coming off quite a dominant year. It seemed as though nobody was going to be able to defeat them, and yet the first event of the year, Liquid was able to win the event and take home their first championship of 2019.
Well, it was the beginning of a reoccurring event this year where we had a powerhouse team that you believe that no one could defeat, and then upset strikes, right? So this is the beginning of it. This just showed, that Astralis weren't just going to walk through 2019 like they did 2018, and it was the beginning of a pretty good rivalry, I would say.
Yeah, and that's what the whole topic of this podcast is. And I'll just let everyone know that this is going to be part 1 of 2. So we're going to do part 1 today, and part 2 will be next Monday when you can watch this. So moving on, as we see here, Liquid gets the very first defeat over Astralis, and they're up 1-0 in the series. February of 2019, there were no major events this month due to the preparation of the major, which was coming up in March. March 2019, the first major of the year in Katowice. Both teams entered as favorites alongside Na'Vi. Astralis finished a perfect 3-0 in the group stage, winning 81 rounds out of a possible 117, which is quite astonishing. Liquid also finished 3-0, and it seemed the two teams were poised to meet in the grand finals again. Astralis cruised their way to a grand finals, defeating NIP and MIBR without losing a single map, while Liquid was matched up against ENCE in the quarterfinals. At this point, ENCE was relatively unknown and was the new team on the pro scene. Map 1, ENCE defeated Liquid 16-11 on Mirage, led by X7's 22 kills and Sergey's 1.44 player rating. Map 2, Liquid quickly built a lead, and at half were up 10-5. It seemed like they were in control and poised to go to a third map. In one of the worst breakdowns of the year, Liquid gave up a 15-8 lead, and ENCE ended up tying it and defeated Liquid in overtime, ending Liquid's hope of winning a major. Astralis went on to defeat ENCE in the finals 2-0, taking home another major championship and starting 2019 just as they finished 2018. Liquid loses in the quarterfinals and takes home $35,000. Magisk wins the MVP of this event. Like I said, Astralis starts off 2019 just like they ended 2018. Looking back at this now, do you think Liquid lost, or we're seeing the rise of Ents in early 2019 as they were the new team on the block and nobody was, had game film or game tape of them and they didn't really know how to play against them?
Well, they were 12th going into that tournament in the world based on the HLTV rankings. So, like top 15, they were a relatively pretty big team at that point. You were top 15. But they were a young team coming into it, relatively, I would say, unknown to the general public. Top 15, but generally unknown. So maybe it was just part of Liquid. You just get off that huge win against Astralis in January. Maybe they were a little bit too confident in themselves, especially you saw in the 15-8 lead where they lost all of it. They complete breakdown what seemed like. So maybe that's kind of was the difference in that tournament. Astralis, even though they were coming in hot off 2018, were still, it seemed like no team. They weren't thinking about the next team ahead of them going into a team like a different match. If they were playing NIP, they weren't thinking, all right, well, we're gonna win this game. We're gonna have to play Liquid next. It was just think about NIP, and that was the difference in this tournament.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think a lot of people were surprised with the ultimate result of Astralis winning the major once again. After this event, we turn to the very first Blast Pro Series event of the year in Sao Paulo. Astralis entered the event as the clear favorites, just winning the major, with Liquid hoping to return back to top form after a poor performance at the Katowice major. Astralis went a perfect 5-0, while Liquid's only defeat came from Astralis. This is the first time they matched up in a grand finals since Liquid defeated Astralis at the iBuy Power event in early 2019. Liquid took map 1 on Dust 2, Nitro leading the way with 22 kills. Map 2 was a dominant performance by Astralis, taking a 11-4 half lead and winning 16-8. Map 3 was a crushing defeat as Astralis won 8 straight rounds, defeating Liquid 16-2 to win the event. Device won the MVP, and Astralis took home the Blast Pro Series championship with $125,000 in cash. Liquid coming in second place with $50,000. This one was probably one of the more lopsided events in terms of them facing each other. It was very unfortunate because I'm sure a lot of people wanted to see a closer matchup, especially going to a third map and then losing 16-2. So they get pounded to the ground in that third map. And it seems as though this isn't the first time we're going to see this, but whenever Liquid chooses Overpass, they typically go down big. Mm-hmm. Historically, we're going to see that as we continue on with the story of 2019. And it's odd to see that they continue to choose Overpass when they continue to do or have such poor results on that map.
A reoccurring thing too would be if you go look at all the past matches, whenever they have adversity, it seems like their game plan gets a little bit torn down. They're not just cruising, everyone's firing on all cylinders. It seems like they kind of melt down at that point. When they're going into a match against Astralis or any other big team all throughout 2019, it felt like there's two Liquids that we can see. One, everyone's firing on all cylinders and they're going to put up a show. Or two, they're going to go down and it's going to be a 16-3, 16-2 map. And that's exactly what you saw right here. And what a reoccurring scene in all 2019, as we're going to find out.
Exactly. Moving on to ECS Week 1. 2019 marked a new format for ECS as they did a tournament style every single week, with the winner advancing to the finals. Not surprising, Astralis dominated Week 1, defeating LDLC, Avantgarde, and NIP with a perfect 6-0 record, so again failing to even drop a single map. They lined their pockets with an additional $12,000 and claiming a final spot at the ECS Championship in late June. In the NA side of things in North America, Liquid was defeated by Rogue in the very first round and failed to qualify in Week 1. Moving on to April, Blast Pro Miami is the next big event. This is the first event that Astralis failed to qualify for the playoffs as they went 2-3 in the round robin. Liquid went a perfect 5-0 to qualify for the grand finals and eventually to face off against FaZe. FaZe defeated Liquid 2-0 and were unable to capitalize on an Astralis failing to qualify for the grand finals. Liquid again comes up short, finishing second place, while Astralis went home with $15,000. Late April marked the beginning of the rise of Liquid with IEM Sydney. 16 teams battled for $250,000 prize pool and the start of the Intel Grand Slam. Astralis did not attend the event. Liquid started off defeating Boot, Big, and NIP to get a direct bye into the semifinals and failed to drop a single map. In the semifinals, they faced off against MIBR, winning 16-10 on Mirage and 19-15 on Nuke, with Twist and Elige leading the way with a combined 106 kills, meeting Fnatic in the grand finals for a best of 5. Fnatic took map 1 16-10, and Liquid taking the next two maps 16-14 and 16-8, setting up to win the grand finals on Dust 2. Unfortunately, JW and Fnatic had different plans as he put up a 1.54 player rating and won the map 16-6, leading to a fifth and final map. Twist took control in the last map, finishing with 26 kills and a 1.52 player rating to take home the very first IEM title of the year and MVP. Liquid won $100,000 in this event. Do you see this as the beginning of the rise of Liquid, or do you think, looking back at the iBay Power, that was the very first event in which they started to pick up some steam?
No, I'd say this was the one. I'd say the iBuy Power was the one that kind of put them on the map, showed that, because, you know, the years leading up to this, it was always Liquid was inconsistent, always had hype, but was always inconsistent. And I feel like that iBuy Power was, all right, this is our time now, we're on the map, but you know, they were still a little bit inconsistent in the months coming after that. I feel like this tournament was the one that everyone really had to take a step back and say, ooh, Astralis is not alone right now as the top team in the world. Like Liquid, this is their moment. And I think it was now 8 weeks in a row, they're going to hold first place in the rankings. So, yeah, this was the beginning of Liquid's small era of 2019.
Yeah, it did seem as though this was going to be the start of something great. I think we saw something at the beginning of January at the iBuy Power event versus Astralis, where they did win that event. It was showing a little glimpse of what they could do. However, what we tend to notice is that when Twist and Elige are playing at their best, that's when Liquid's playing at their best because they're getting their frags. Nitro and Naf and Stewie are great support players. Naf being a player that can actually take control and outfrag Elige and Twist on any given day. So always having the consistent play of Twist and Elige seems to be the starting point, with good in-game leading from Nitro and good support play from Naf and Stewie. So again, this was the very first IEM event of the season, and Liquid took that for their second championship of 2019, and to solidify their spot as I believe they took over number one spot on the HLTV rankings following this event. Leading into May of 2019 was the Blast Pro in Madrid. Liquid did not attend the event, and Astralis was quickly the favorites to take home another title. It was a rematch of the major finals, ENCE versus Astralis, as ENCE sought retribution for the defeat in Katowice, led by Ariel with 46 kills and a 1.41 rating. ENCE ended up defeating Astralis 2-0 to win the event, Astralis taking second place and $50,000. Again, looking at ENCE, is this another case where they haven't been around that long, and having some relatively unknown players with Ariel, X7, and Sergey, there's not much to know on these players, and they are thriving stars, and they were able to catch a lot of these top teams off guard. Do you think that's what happened here, even though Astralis already defeated them in the major grand finals?
Well, yeah, Alu was really the only player on there that had a resume before this young Ents team was put together, right? So yeah, I think this is another instance of that, and a common theme that we saw throughout a lot of 2019 was Ents kind of being that disruptor of the Astralis versus Liquid. It was always Ents was kind of like messing with them. If one of them had a clear path to the finals, Ents was like right there, was gonna block them. So yeah, I think that was a reoccurring theme, was the underrating of Ents, and then coming out and disrupting these two giants.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to ECS Week 4, Liquid again trying to qualify for the ECS Championships. They defeated Space Station and Luminosity, however, coming up short against MIBR, taking home $5,000 in prizes. It seems as though with the ECS and that qualifying, it should be relatively easy. I mean, ECS wants the higher known teams to qualify. They give many opportunities to go ahead and qualify, but Liquid again failing to qualify for that championship and for the finals in late June. It's weird that we're seeing them throughout 2019 having a hard time with relatively unknown or lower ranked teams, but yet they can defeat top 20 to top 5 teams relatively easily. So kind of an odd situation. Maybe it's a lack of preparation, or maybe it's the travel, or combination of the two. Whereas the lower ranked teams aren't playing as much, they're not traveling as much. Maybe fatigue played a little bit of a factor in the inability to qualify for the ECS championships.
Yeah, and I think it was a case of playing up to your competition, where we're talking about these lower ranked teams, and playing down to your competition when we're talking about Liquid. Another reoccurring theme with Liquid during this year was, smoking some of the best teams in the world, but then losing to Sharks and losing to, Greyhound. It was Furia, Rogue. It was a very reoccurring theme that we saw.
Moving on to the ESL Pro League Season 9, Liquid was grouped with Ghost, Complexity, and Lazarus, finishing a perfect 3-0 to claim their spot at the Pro League Finals, while Astralis was grouped with Hellraisers, Big, and 3D Max, also finishing 3-0 to qualify for the finals. Nothing surprising here, as both teams prevail and qualify for the ESL Pro League Finals. At CS Summit 4, Astralis did not attend the event. However, Liquid did, and played against up-and-coming Vitality, Ents, NRG, Ghost, and Renegades. Liquid qualified for the semifinals to play against fellow North American rivals NRG. However, Liquid, coming off the IEM Sydney Championship, continued their stellar play, defeating NRG 16-8 and 16-8, Elite finishing with 44 kills and a 1.42 player rating. They advanced to the finals to play up-and-coming French side Vitality, led by superstar ZywOo. ZywOo made his presence known in the first map, dropping 24 kills and 1.61 player rating, defeating Liquid 16-9. Another slow start on Overpass saw Vitality jump out to a 11-4 half. Liquid won 7 straight rounds on CT, but wasn't enough, as ZywOo led Vitality to a 2-0 victory and an MVP performance. Liquid did take home $36,500 in their CS Summit venture. Again, we see at this point Vitality was another relatively unknown team in how they could perform. They did have a lot of different professionals that were established but not playing together in terms of on Vitality. And with the addition of ZywOo on that team, took them to another level, and ZywOo completely dominated this tournament. And we saw that happen on Overpass, where it seemed Liquid could not answer on the T side. Moving forward to June at DreamHack Masters Dallas 2019, another event in which Astralis did not attend. 16 teams competed for $250,000 in prizes, with big players Ents, FaZe, G2, and Vitality all attending. Day 1, Liquid defeated Lucid Dreams and North with a perfect record to play FaZe in the upper bracket finals, the winner with an automatic qualification to the semifinals. It was a closely fought match which saw Liquid slightly edge FaZe 2-1, led by Twist and NAF in the In the semifinals, they matched up against Furia, defeating them 2-0 with Elige putting up 54 frags and just 49 rounds played. They saw themselves matched up against Ents once again. Liquid took map 1 16-8 and hoped to have a good start on Overpass, which historically always ended up starting slow. Only down 8-7 at the half, they hoped to have a strong second half on CT. However, Ents won 5 straight, putting them down by 6 rounds and ultimately beat Liquid 19-17. Map 3, Liquid was able to start off with a 10-1 lead and didn't look back, winning the event and taking home $100,000 and Elige with an MVP performance. ECS Season 7 Finals. 8 teams to compete for $500,000 with the likes of Vitality, NRG, Astralis as the favorites for the event. As we know, Liquid failed to qualify for this finals. Astralis was grouped with NRG, Furia, and NIP, shockingly losing their first match against Furia 16-14. In order to stay alive in the event, they had to defeat NIP in a best of 3, doing so quite easily 16-5 and 16-6 to face off against Furia to advance to the semifinals. Astralis took map 1 16-12, Device leading the way with 25 kills. After a close first half on Mirage, Astralis found themselves only down by 1 round going on to their T side. Unfortunately, they couldn't find any answers to get through Furia's defense, losing 7 straight rounds, dropping the map 16-10. The third map was Nuke, which saw Furia defeat them in their opening match. After a 9-6 CT side by Astralis, they appeared to be in control. However, did they give Furia too many rounds on T side? It ended up being that way, as once again Astralis had no answers to bypass the CT defense of Furia, losing 7 straight rounds on T side, and ultimately losing 16-13, being eliminated with only $25,000 in earnings and failing to qualify for the playoffs at ECS. And this was kind of the historic run by Furia. Ultimately, they didn't really accomplish much for the rest of the year, but we saw twice Astralis losing 2 maps in this, I guess you could say, qualifier into the quarterfinals. And both times they had no answers for the CT side of Furia. And I guess we look back at this and you could say to yourself, why did they pick Nuke for a third map, knowing that Furia already defeated them on that map? Is it being overconfident, or maybe it's perhaps the lack of preparation, in the sense that I don't think Astralis would not prepare on Furia and overlook them. I think they just didn't have enough information on how Furia would play certain positions on certain maps, and that could have been the answer on this one.
Yeah, and I do think, because Astralis historically is all about the strategies and tactics, Nuke is a very strategic and tactic heavy map. So I feel like Astralis going into that just thought, we can just use our amazing IGL and the best coach in the world to take these guys on, but proved to be their downfall at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to ESL Pro League Season 9 Finals. Wrapping up Season 9, this was one of the more anticipated events of the year, aside from the majors. 16 teams competed for $600,000 in prizes, with both Liquid and Astralis coming in as the heavy favorites. Astralis defeated Cloud9 and Heroic on day 1 to face off against NRG in the upper bracket finals, only to be defeated 2-1, finding themselves in a quarterfinals position, rather than a direct bye into the semifinals. Liquid lost their opening match to North, finding themselves in the lower bracket on the very first day. They went on to defeat Tyloo 2-0, Hellraisers 2-1, and MIBR 2-0, qualifying for the quarterfinals, of course, against Astralis. Many deemed this the grand finals, as this was the much anticipated matchup that everyone wanted to see, but unfortunately it occurred in the quarterfinals. Map 1 was Overpass. Very odd that Liquid didn't ban this map, but they felt they had better chance on Overpass than Dust 2. Again, Liquid started off slow, allowing Astralis to go up 10-0. Eventually, Astralis would go on to take the first map 16-12. Map 2 was a lopsided affair, as this time it was Liquid to go up 9-0 and eventually 14-1 first half, and took the map to 16-6. Map 3 was Vertigo. This was the first time that we saw these two teams play on this map. Astralis took a commanding first half lead 11-4, and it seemed as though Astralis was going to be victorious. However, Liquid went on a 10-0 run during the second half to make it 14-11. Astralis failed to defend their CT side, and finally Liquid was victorious over Astralis and won 2-1. Elige led the way with 78 kills, a 1.46 player rating, over 18 more frags than the next Liquid player. Ultimately, this proved to be the difference as Astralis didn't have a player with over 64 kills. Liquid advanced to the semifinals, easily dispatching Mousesports 2-0 and facing off in the grand finals in a best of 5 against G2. Liquid took map 1 and 2 fairly easily and hoped to wrap up the championship in map 3 on Nuke. However, the strong play from Jax and Kenny S saw G2 victorious 16-12 and forced at least one more map. Another amazing map saw this one go into overtime, with Liquid eventually edging out 25-22 and winning their second IEM event of the year and cashing in $250,000.
Yeah, so I guess now that we have the backstory of the first 6 months of the year, let's break down what we just saw. So from January to June, I'll start with Liquid. They ended up winning 6 tournaments. 4 being S-tier tournaments, which are the highest. If you guys are not familiar, the rankings for a lot of things like tournaments, S-tier is the highest, followed by A, then B, then C, then D, and finally F being the lowest tier. Liquid took home 4 S-tier tournaments, 1 A-tier and 1 B-tier, for a total of $732,250. And they ended up finishing with, obviously, 6 first-place wins, 3 second place, 1 fourth place, and 1 fifth place. So they definitely started off the year very strong, taking home a lot of winnings and, winning some very big tournaments. Down the other side of the coin, we look at Astralis, who it was odd to say. I remember the big problem was they weren't participating in a lot of tournaments. We saw a lot of Liquid, but a big problem was we weren't seeing a lot of Astralis, so it was hard to compare them at first. So they ended up only winning 3 tournaments, 2 being S tier, 1 being A tier. Then they had 2 second place finishes, a 4th, 2 fifths, and a 6th for, oddly enough, $787,000 in winnings. So if we compare that, Astralis actually won more money. And I'd say that's thanks to winning the major, which was $500,000. And oddly enough, they ended up splitting Liquid and Astralis, that being split maps 4-4 in their early match at the beginning of the year. So starting off the year, these teams looked very, very even. And even though Astralis participated in less tournaments, they actually ended up winning more money.
Yeah, so I guess at this point what you can see is when you compare them head-to-head, they're even at this point of the year. We're halfway through the 2019 schedule, and they're 4-4 against each other at this point. Astralis does have the slight edge in earnings.
Yeah.
However, that can be determined as the higher win rate that Astralis had over Liquid. So Liquid attended more events but lost more. Meanwhile, Astralis attended less events but won more. So I guess at this point of the year, even though Astralis won the major, then you look at Liquid winning 2 IEM events back-to-back, I'd have to give, if you look at earnings and win ratio, the slight edge to Astralis at this point in terms of who had the better year.
Yeah, I would definitely say so as well. But, part 2 will be coming next week, and we will be diving into what will become the Giants in a mini age of Liquid coming up, including, some intel wins, a few major runs. But as of right now, for the first 6 months of the year, it definitely looks like Astralis were the more consistent team when they participated in tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the conversation that we had in early 2019 was, some of these blunders that we saw from Astralis, at ECS where they failed to even move through into the playoffs and losing to Furia. And the One Blast Pro Series where they lost and didn't make it through to the grand finals. Was that were they not playing enough? Were they not attending enough events? However, at this point of the season, halfway through, I personally give the slight edge to Astralis, but it is very close. I just look at the win ratio. The win ratio is slightly higher than Liquid's, and that gives me my opinion, the slight edge to Astralis over Liquid in the first half of 2019.
Yeah, and we can't forget that they won a major in early 2019, right? So that's probably the biggest tournament out of either team's winnings. So yeah, I think that the edge right now for the first 6 months of the year goes to Astralis.
Yep. And for those, this is part 1 of 2. Next week, we're going to continue with the second half of 2019, recapping both one of the great years of Astralis and Liquid and determine who we believe had the better season. We will recap all these statistics in terms of earnings, win ratios, and head-to-head wins. So stay tuned. Make sure you tune in next Monday for part 2 of this podcast and YouTube show. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk to you later.